Hey y'all, Tom at Buxton Auto. I got another video for you today. This one about salvage titles. I'm kind of calling it the guide to buying a rebuilt or salvage title car. So if you're considering buying one of these cars, I have some tips and pointers, explanations, and things like that. I am a licensed dealer here in Texas, so some of the information I share may be Texas specific, but your state may be similar, and if nothing else, it will open your eyes to what you need to consider if you're thinking of buying a rebuilt or a salvage title car. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to say is, what is a salvage title car? What is a rebuilt title car? So the terms salvage title and rebuilt title sometimes get used as the same thing, when in reality they are completely different. So a salvage title car is a car that the insurance company deemed a total loss. They paid out the person that owned the car, and then they sold this car at a salvage auction for the intent of someone else to buy the car and either use it as parts or rebuild the car and put it back on the road. So that's a salvage title car. Those cannot be registered to drive in the state of Texas. Those titles are actually pink and they say salvage title car on top of the title. Then you have the rebuilt title car. And a lot of people still call them salvage titles, but in reality they are rebuilt titles. And what that is someone bought that car from that insurance auction. They went through a process of fixing the car, and states are different. Some require some type of inspection, some don't. A lot of them really don't. We'll get into that later. But the car's been deemed by paperwork anyway, safe to be put back on the road. So then you turn in that salvage title and the paperwork that you did, and you receive back a, in Texas, blue title, but under remarks it says rebuilt. And different states do it differently. Some mention how much of a loss it was estimated to be. Some might say flood. Some might say rebuilt hail. It just depends on your state. In Texas, it just says rebuilt. So that's the two differences. The pink title in Texas, not able to be registered and driven on the road. And the blue title in Texas has already gone through the rebuilding process and has indicated so with the rebuilt mark under the comments. Now, this is one of the things that's really important to think about when you're buying a rebuilt titled car, especially here in Texas. As I mentioned a second ago, if you Google, it will tell you there's an inspection. The reality is there's not any sort of inspection for safety. So if you are buying a car that has a rebuilt title, if it was rebuilt years ago, I wouldn't be as worried about it. If it was recently rebuilt, maybe you're buying it from the person that rebuilt it, I would consider taking it to an auto repair shop or a body shop, having them put it up on a lift and do a real safety inspection. Texas used to have what we called a safety inspection, which was, do your headlights, your taillights, your brakes, all that work. In emissions counties, we still have an emissions test, but we've done away with the safety inspection. And what's crucial about that is nobody is looking at these cars to make sure that the front suspension was actually bolted upright and tight, that the subframe was tight, that the rear differential was in properly. So I would always advise, if you're buying a recently rebuilt car, no matter what state you're in, but particularly Texas, take it to a shop, pay them a little money, and let them check it out for you and tell them, hey, it's a rebuilt title. I want to make sure it's safe. Was the frame cracked and not repaired? Who cares if there's a little crumple that was repaired on the body? But you want to know basically that you can put your wife, husband, daughter, son, mom, whatever in this car and not have to worry about them being unsafe or getting hurt because something was wrong with the car. Another thing you might want to consider if you're trying to buy a car that has a rebuilt title, people often want to know, what was the damage? Well, that damage is actually supposed to be reported in the forms that you use when you're rebuilding a title. But another way to possibly find out what the damage to the vehicle looked like is cut and paste that vehicle's VIN into a Google search and hit the search and then switch the search to images. You can often find pictures of the vehicle still on the insurance company's website where you can see pictures of it that while it was being sold at auction and get an idea of how bad the damage might have been. Again, a quality repair body shop or mechanic that knows how to do things right, I wouldn't have a problem buying one of these cars. But where I'm worried is when somebody buys it as an individual because they're going to flip a car and make some money, and they fix it in their garage or their driveway. They may not actually have all the technical skills they need to do this and do it safely. But I will also tell you that the way insurance companies price repairs and body shops, it's almost like a collusion. That body shop knows exactly how much money that insurance company is going to pay. And when they're pricing parts to make these repairs, they price new parts. And when you price new parts, then you're pricing labor to sand those parts, prep those parts, paint those parts. Whereas maybe a little independent dealership, repair, body shop, might be okay with buying parts from a wrecking yard and putting those on. And sometimes you get lucky and you find body panels that are the same color. So just because it was totaled by the insurance company doesn't necessarily mean it was a big, huge repair. It could have been a hood, a grill, a front headlight, and a fender, and somebody could have bought those same panels, that same color, and bolted them up, and you could have been fine. So it really does depend. But that's a good way to try to find it. Google that VIN number, see if anything shows up, then switch your Google search to images, see if you find pictures of that car. Just something to think about before you buy this car. Another question I frequently get asked or people inquire about is who should or should not buy a rebuilt title car. I always say if you are trying to buy some kind of vintage Corvette or collector car or something like that, probably wouldn't buy the rebuilt title car. Yes, you would get it at a big discount, but that value is going to be diminished if you're buying something like that. Somebody that should buy or could buy a rebuilt title car is somebody that doesn't care that it is going to have less value and say they can't afford a 2020 whatever, but if they found this one that had a rebuilt title, they could, and that's really the car they want. I would say go ahead and buy it. Obviously get it checked out and inspected, but you're going to get to drive the car that you want at a little bit lower price, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just remember that when you go to sell that car, it again will have a little bit lower price. Another person that's great for this type of car is the family's backup car, second car, or somebody that travels a whole lot locally for their job. Maybe you're a realtor, maybe you're a parts deliverer, somebody that just puts a ton of miles on the car. Maybe you live out in the country and you come into this city to work, so you're driving 100 miles a day, 150 miles a day just on your commute. Rebuilt title cars are great for this because, one, they are cheaper. Two, you don't care about the rebuilt part because you're going to put a ton of miles on this car and you're going to ruin the value of the car based on miles. And so, a rebuilt title Honda or Toyota that you're going to commute back and forth to work on, nothing wrong with having a rebuilt title. It's probably a great way to go, and it will minimize the loss that you take on depreciation. And then, of course, there's the car for the teenage driver. I have no problem and even suggest sometimes folks get a rebuilt title car for their teenage driver's first car. Now, why is this? Well, one, the car is going to be cheaper because it is rebuilt. Yes, again, I would say go get it checked out, make sure that it is safe. But let's be honest about teenage drivers, guys. I think every teenage driver is going to have an accident. Either a fender bender or a total in their career. It's almost like a rite of passage. So getting that car that's a little bit cheaper, that maybe is in a price range where maybe you would only put liability insurance on it anyway, that's a good way to get your kid a little bit better car, maybe a little bit newer car, that if they end up wrecking the car, and God, I hope they're safe, but if they end up wrecking the car, you're not out a ton of money. So those are the people that I would recommend are good to buy a rebuilt title car. It's really almost anybody, as long as they're not concerned about collector value or resale values. Because again, these rebuilt title cars, you may lose 25% of retail just based on that. And when the cars get older and age out, it's less important. Like when I buy these cars and I sell them on my lot for $3,000 to $5,000, generally there's a minimal reduction in price based on the fact that they're rebuilt title cars. Now, if I was selling 2020 models, I would probably be seeing that 25% reduction based on the fact that it's a rebuilt title. But anyway, that's who I would suggest buy the rebuilt title cars. I've already touched on this earlier in the video, but one of the questions I get is, what's the most important thing to consider when you're buying a rebuilt title car? And there are several things to consider, like we've talked about. Obviously, you're not looking to get collector value out of the car. Obviously, you're going to be aware of the price reduction that you will receive when you go to sell it. But the most important thing, in my opinion, about buying a rebuilt title car, and specifically a rebuilt title car that was recently rebuilt, like you might be the first owner of that car after the rebuild process, is take the car somewhere. Please pay that $100 or $200 to have them put it on the lift and check it out. In many states, there is just no accountability for these rebuilt titles. Some states do have an inspection. Almost every state's forms that they have you fill out when you're doing a rebuild title, they want to know where your parts came from, if it was a frame, an engine, something else. Some specific parts, they want the VIN number of the vehicle that it came off of and a receipt that you paid for that part from the Joe Schmo's wrecking yard or whatever. But when if it's an inspection being done by like the state police or something, they're not looking at safety like, is it bolted in right? They're looking to verify that the parts that you use to rebuild the car were not stolen parts. Like, you're not running a chop shop where you steal a car and then you go find cars that are beat up that are like that car and then use the stolen car parts to fix your other cars. That's what the police are looking for, is to stop the chop shops and the thieves. They're not looking for quality of work or complete work. So please, if you do nothing else, if you are going to be the first person to buy that rebuilt title car, or that rebuilt title car was done a year ago or something like that, and somebody's selling it already, please spend the money and go tell the shop, hey, this is a rebuilt title car. I just want to make sure this car is safe for my son, daughter, whoever it might be. Most important thing you can do, guys, make sure the car is checked out and safe. All right, last thing, guys, if you like these videos that I make, please give me a like, a subscribe. I have a playlist about behind the scenes of a sleazy used car lot. There's plenty of videos about us buying and selling cars, flipping cars, some of the challenges we come into. I also have a playlist about Texas DMV forms. So if you're a Texas resident, I can show you how to do lost titles, bonded titles, salvage titles, all those fun things. So check those videos out as well. I appreciate everybody watching. I got another video coming up, and y'all have yourselves a bright and wonderful day. If you have any problems, questions, or concerns, put that comment down below. My channel's still small. I'm still able to respond to most all of these comments in a pretty easy time frame. So anyway, guys, next video is coming up. Hope to see you there. Take care.